am Stacy Penright, and my real name is actually Anastasia, but I go by Stacy. I am. I work at a Fortune 500 company in Houston, Texas, by way of New Orleans. And a little bit about some of the things that I've done besides being a corporate professional for the last close to 14 years of my life. I have been. I'm somewhat of a community leader. I've been huge on volunteerism. I'm very active here in Houston when it comes to not only just volunteering for things that are helpful, but also education. I run a nonprofit where we're focused on bringing many deliverables to communities that don't normally get resources that they can actually afford. In my case, with my nonprofit, we give this away free. It's things such as resources around communication. We practice debate and how to speak to people and then how to articulate a point. Then also focus on building your brand. The best way now when I'm teaching students, it's more of classroom etiquette. What is important when it comes to that? And then how does that fall in line as you go into your collegiate career? Then for adults, it goes into building your brand as a person. Whether you work in a corporate environment, what do you want people to say when you're in and out of the room? And then also when you're off the clock, what do we know about you besides the company that you work for? Then another piece of it is health and wellness. There are a lot of things we always look at. We look at diet, we look at exercise, but a lot of times mental health takes the back seat. And so when talking to students, we just don't think about stress that can come to kids. And a lot of my program is focused around things that they can do within their control. They really, when you're young, you can't control what you eat. You can't control what time you have dinner. So what are things that are in your control? Breathing exercises. Ways that you cope with being upset or cope with anger and things like that. And then lastly, we talk about building wealth. Now, within Black and Brown communities, we don't have a lot of resources or a lot of education around what it looks like with generational wealth. And those who want to learn about that, they really just can't afford the information. So what we do is we provide resources that are either out there available for free anyway, or we bring in experts that come in with their time to have conversations around that. So from small businesses to growing your business to what it looks like as an entrepreneur to what does it look like if you are working for an organization. So whatever it is to bring that wealth down to the next generation. So that's me in a nutshell. Yes. Okay. So one of the things that my company did, which was really great, we had an opportunity to apply to do a TED Talk, which is something that I'm not going to say was my biggest goal. And I've done a great deal of professional speaking and interviews, panels, and different things like that. Now, when this came across, I just thought, this would be a great opportunity. And I'm one of those people. I take advantage of things that are there. A lot of times when, even if you work for a company, there's things they offer, resources, tools, and people they just do their job and they go home, which is fine. But one of the things, if I'm working for our huge billion-dollar company and they want to be able to provide something, whether it's education, training, whatever it is, I like to take advantage of it. And so when this opportunity with TED Talk, it came about, they said, hey, we're partnering with our company, we're partnering with TED Institute. And a part of that partnership is that we're going to select 13 people to be selected to do the TED Talk. And so there was a huge application process. There was a huge way to go through, and you had to create a topic. Well, the only thing we were given was Ignite. It was something that you were it was a passion that you can bring to not just professionals in financial industries, but across the world and across different industries. And one of the things that has been just so common with me is workplace drama. And it's just because it's the corporate world, and so anytime you work with people, there is going to be drama because there's so many different personalities. There's just so many different things. Some people are managers. Some people are leading without authority. And so that was just been the common theme within my circle. So I decided, let me write about that. See what people think about, what I've been doing to cope with the drama. And when I first went down this whole rabbit hole of thinking about it, I started with some things people might think, I'll just ignore everybody. I'm not talking to anyone. That doesn't work. No one, no one, then you ignore everyone. Everyone is just, they're even more in your business because they're trying to figure out why you're ignoring people. So I tried different things to help me get through the day. Then I tried different things to not only help me get through the day, for me to be productive and still feel whole. You don't want to leave work just feeling incomplete. Then I started just trying different things that not only helped with that piece, but then also where I felt good about myself. I felt okay. I didn't have all this tension and just upset and just keeping my head down and trying to make it. So from various different tactics, that's where I came up with the 5. And they have work. And it's work, I want to say. I don't want to ever make that work small when it comes to it because I constantly have to do it. It takes a lot to have to work with such different personalities when you want to be peaceful, but you also don't want to be weak. And you also want to be vocal, but you don't want to be so demanding that it's off-putting. So it's just this balancing game. And that's where it came from, trial and error. After doing it for so long, I literally wrote it down and I was like, I wonder if anyone would care about it. And so far, they have. Oh my gosh, that's a great question. It probably took, I'm going to say from when trial and error from the first time I said I need to work on this, maybe a good 5 months, 5 or 6 months, because not only the trial and error period, but then recognizing my situation. And that's something that's very important because I start the talk where I said, these are steps that have helped with aggravations at work. People that are just annoying. Like they don't necessarily have authority over me, which is a difference. Now, we have a lot of people who deal with some drama where they can have it where it's maybe their manager, someone else higher up, someone who actually has the power to not only dictate what they do, but can dictate them having a job. In the case of my situation, these weren't my problem children. My problem children didn't have any power or authority or influence. They were just simply petty and annoying. And that is that situation that can be dealt with where you have to know exactly what you need to do to get along, but then also when to cut off relationships. When you're looking at a situation with managers and things like that, that's a whole new ball game where you can apply these steps, but it comes some additional steps. There'll be more conversations you need to have. There'll be more of, I need to escalate this to someone else because they actually have some power. So it did take that 6 months, but it started with me first recognizing which situation I was in. Starting with step 1, rewind and reflect, also known as what did I do? This is the revelation. I have a running joke with one of my friends, and we say, every time we speak, we say, okay, we're going through the book of Revelations. We have to recap the story so that way we can see exactly the role that we played into it. And it's hard to do that. The reason why is because we have no choice but to recap the story in our perspective. It's our story. So with that, we're always thinking about how we felt while we were in the situation, which is the one thing we don't want to do in step 1. You want to recap the story, but you're going to try to remove the emotion. You're trying to now do an out-of-body experience. Like, okay, just play it like a movie. What happened? Where was I? You're looking at yourself, you're looking at the other person, and you're listening. I had a chance to do this, and I just kind of picked a few stories or things that happened to me. And one of the things that I noticed about myself is that I was too engaging. There was times when I should have just let the situation play out and just backed off. But it's, in hindsight, that's easy to do. And you're looking at it, you're like, oh, I could have just shut up. I could have just let it go. But when you're in it, the situation, if someone tells you something, it's easier when we put it in an example. Let's say you are talking to someone and they tell you, oh, hey, we just finished this project and we found out that the answer is A. And you're saying, well, no, it's actually B. And they're saying, no, it's A, it's A. And you're saying, well, no, we did the research, it's actually B. And at this situation, you know there's a disconnect, you know you're going back and forth. And then when I looked at that situation, like in my step one, reflect, I knew it was B. We had data to prove it was B. Everyone else knew it was B. What was the point of me arguing with this person about this? It's not going to escalate behind this. It had nothing to do with if my job stayed mine. So why was I going back and forth? But that's the emotional piece. It's something about, how are you going to tell me what it is when we all know what it is? There is research to prove it, but you're in the moment. You feel the need to do that. So when you now look back and you reflect and you can see situations like that, what's keeping you there? What's making you go back and forth with that person? Is it pride? Is it just, is it emotionally driven? Like, what is your overall purpose? And those are the things you have to think about. And so the next time a situation like that happens, replay that so you can think, is it worth it? Why am I doing this? What is it? What am I going to gain? And that's how you got to look at it. So that's our step one. All right. Step two, come back to reality, also known as it needs to stop. Now, this one is everything is in your control 100%. This is the times where you are allowing yourself to think negative about something that could possibly happen. When I did the talk on the stage, I gave examples of things we do as we're getting ready for work, and we might talk about, or we might put in our head situations that could take place. Like if someone sends me this email, I'm going to do this. Or if someone tells me this, I'm going to say this. And you play out this entire scene that didn't happen. But the thing about it is you do that because usually similar situations have happened. So you are replaying either an incomplete story, maybe something that could have happened in the past, or you're playing something that is very similar to what has happened already. And now you're just trying to say, okay, this is the normal. This is what they usually do. They usually send me a passive-aggressive email, or they usually question me about this and they know better. But even if you know that this has happened in the past, you still don't truly know it will happen in the future. And by holding all of that tension before you go in, it's just adding stress. Now, we can't control, or we can try to mitigate, but we can't really control what other people are doing or any additional stress that comes once we get to work. But if you add on stress even before you get there, that's just going to be so much more. It's better to go in empty slate. Like when you go to work, what happens at work will happen. And we can try to control it once we're there, but there's nothing we can do prior. So don't add on by thinking of all the worst case scenarios. Then also in the speech I mentioned about listening to other people's made up situations. So just, and this happens, it's the water cooler talk. Everybody has an opinion about everyone. I've never worked at an organization where it didn't happen. And it really does help to create this perception of individuals in our heads. I know there was a person I was actually really great friends with, and they left the company. And so then I called them a really great friend, but I'll say they were a really great work friend. I didn't know them beyond work. And then I hear someone else talking about the person. I said, hey, did you hear so-and-so just left? And they tell me, oh, yeah, but I really wasn't a big fan of his because he did this and he did that. So I kind of think he's this kind of person. And I'm just listening like, well, I guess I can see why you think that. And then when I talk to that person, I kind of keep that in the back of my head, the other person's view of them. And that makes me treat them a little different, whether I'm doing it intentionally or not. And that's how we get to a lot of unconscious bias, is that we allow other people's voices to really determine how we treat others. And so all of it is so negative and it is so toxic. Whether we are bringing the toxicity or if we're allowing someone else, we have to go ahead and just allow the situations to play out. See what is real. Then when we get into step 3, vent and release, and this is the title is vent and release, and then, it needs to stop. This is when you have your vent buddy at work. This is your confidant. This is your, I call it my person besides my vent buddy. And this is not just someone I would call who is just nearby or if they're in a project. Like, let's say you're doing a project with a group of people and you might have someone who you just naturally gravitate to. As humans, we do that. We find some type of similarity and we gravitate to that person. And even if you are working with them day and night for the last 2 weeks, it doesn't mean you necessarily know them. And a lot of times, we just because they're here, we decide, oh no, we're best friends. And you decide to vent and you say things or you that. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're your vent buddy. Now, your true vent buddy, this is person you have an established relationship. That is the piece that you need to get. So when you're talking to your vent buddy, because you're so close and you have that relationship, when you're mad, they're mad. That's how it is. You have a great relationship. So it's so easy for your vent buddy to just, oh my God, that happened in this. And they can amp up a situation. So now you're mad and then you talk with them and they point out a bunch of things you probably missed. And now you're even more mad. And so that's not productive. So what you want to do with your vent buddy is that you want to have a productive conversation. We need to address the problem. Like, you got to get it out. You got to scream. You have to curse. You have to be mad. And your vent buddy, as the receiver, they do well with listening to that. Being able to take that, allow you to get that out, understand where it's coming from, get the emotion part out. But then their piece, they need to be able to say, okay, now that you've gotten that out, let's talk about how do we fix it. What do we change? What are the next steps we need to do? How do we get you out of that situation? And then now you, as the ventor, you have to now be able to pause and listen to that advice. Understand it and put it into practice. Yes, step 4. Learn a new language, also known as we need to talk. I'm glad this is your favorite one. So this one, and this is mine too. One of the things is I define my cadence at work or whatever I'm doing as my work language. There are certain things that I just don't do. I'm not the person who, if I need an answer, I pick up the phone and call you. I just don't do that. I will email you, I will ping you, and that's after I've tried to figure it out myself. There are some people who they will just pick up the phone, anything. I need a quick response. Let me just call and see what Stacy's doing. And even when I answer the phone, I'm the kind of person, because I don't do that unless there's a problem. Like, the only way I will pick up the phone and call at work is if either it's way too long to type, and I'll usually email you and say, hey, I'm about to call you, so I still have an email out there, or it's something where it's 911, I need you right now, I need an answer, it cannot wait until I get this email. So because that's my work language, when someone is calling me, I think the same thing. I'll even answer the phone and I'll say, oh my God, what's wrong? They're like, nothing. I was just asking you a question. So that's just how I am. But I need to, one of the things that we have to do when you're working with other people, you have to understand their work language, things that they look at. And we have a lot of people, and I work with a lot of people in a lot of different generations. They feel that not everything needs to go through email. I don't know if it's I always call it my conspiracy theorist team. They don't like a lot of email tracking, so they like to pick up the phone. And I always think, God, that's like a lot of time to call these different people, but that's just how they communicate. So I had to learn as I'm starting to pick up the phone, it doesn't mean it's a 911. If I'm answering, I can just say hello. I don't have to say, what's wrong? What's the emergency? I can just answer. Then also when it comes to emails, I know when I did the TED Talk, I had the email up about understanding. I have a habit of, I will definitely read an email the way I speak, unless I know you. And so I read it with a smile with a smiley face. I probably won't even pick up on the sarcasm until maybe later, probably a year from now. I'm like, I don't think they meant that the way I read it. But I don't pick up on that in real time. And that even goes to when I'm sending emails. I'm very, I'll have a lot of exclamation points or smiley face, or I'll add a lot of fluff to my emails. That's a part of my work language. There are some people who are very direct. And I've noticed that, and I've learned to realize that it's not rude. It's not, well, sometimes it can be, but it's not always rude. It's just that's their work language. If someone were to ask me, hey, Stacy, can you send that file for ABCD? And I'm like, sure, here I can. It's attached. Thanks so much. Have a great day. That's my email. There are some people who will literally send the file and like, here you go. And that's it. That doesn't mean anything either way. It's just the work language of the two individuals. And when it comes to this step, that's one of the things that can cause a communication barrier. And we have to start learning, realizing that not everyone is going to speak the way we do. Some people are, even like if you look at it geographically, like here in the States, it's a well-known, or I guess I can say stereotype of our East Coast people. They're very fast and they're very direct, like our New Yorkers. They are, what do you need? How do you need it? What do you want? End of discussion. Where you might have the southern places, where I am in the South, where we call it our southern hospitality. We're a little bit more, oh, sure, you need something? Of course, I'm happy to help. How's your day going? And that's just our cadence. That's how we speak. And if you don't recognize that when you're working with other people, it could come off as conflict, or it could actually cause conflict. So we need to all learn other people's work language and accept the fact that it's different. That's one of the pieces. People try to change you to fit what's more comfortable for them. We have to learn that works for them, and we need to accept that, and we need to adjust ourselves for that. And it doesn't mean you're appeasing everyone. It means you're helping them just like they will help you. Maybe they don't like getting smiley faces, but they're taking it because they know you like giving smiley faces. Step 5, recognize and protect, also known as we need to take a walk. So this was what I would say was my revelation, which is really hard to come to, but it is what it is. There are some people who, it's not that they are not trying to understand your work language. It's not that they're trying to do their own self-reflection or trying to understand your perspective. They simply just don't care. And that's just the unfortunate reality. They're not trying to understand you. They don't want to get along. They're not interested in that. And that is something for us, we have to realize that's another thing we can't control. You cannot make someone be a reasonable person. They have the right to be wrong. They have the right to do what they choose. But you do not have to fall in line to that. We don't. So what we do, it's time to go. It's time to walk away. It doesn't mean quit your job. It doesn't mean I can't work with you professionally. But what it does mean is that we have a job to do, and that's all we do. We do this work. I do my part. You do your part, and that is it. We do not converse beyond that. We don't have conversations. This is not my vent buddy. They shouldn't be venting to me. And usually when I'm at the point where I have to do that, when I call it I need to take a walk type person, everything is very direct. There is no more, I'm not changing who I am, but I am changing my tone. And the reason why I do that is because I need to set that boundary. So in my example before, I said where that Southern hospitality, if someone were to ask for a document, I'm like, here you go. Hope you have a great day, everything. With that person, it would be, here you go. I'm not interested in how your day was. And I know that sounds rough, but you know where this path ends. You know what it leads to. And many times we love to give people the benefit of the doubt. We love to say, let me try it again. Maybe they didn't mean it that way, or maybe they didn't understand. If you've tried something a couple of times and now you're seeing it firsthand, it's time to believe it and it's time to walk away. You don't have to have another talk. You've already learned their work language. You know what it is. You've already done your self-reflection, every single step that you've looked at, and it is simply they are not trying to do anything past that. So it is time to professionally walk away from that individual. And it can also mean, or I should say, this is another way to look at it. What everyone brings to relationships, that's like a gift. Whomever is your friend or your vent buddy, you give them something too. Like, people aren't, they're not forced to be around you when it comes to relationships. They're choosing to. So that's a gift you're giving people. You don't have to give it to everyone. Some people just don't deserve that. And that's one thing I had to realize, because I don't like being mean. I don't like feeling like, oh, there are people out there who don't like me, but that's something I had to accept on my own, and that's fine. But then also I had to realize that they don't deserve this part of me. You don't get the opportunity to be around me if everything is going to be negative, or you're going to be rude, or just simply just annoying and not easy, or not even trying to get along with others. So that's our professional walk away. There's no more going through it, no more. You have to be able to exit those conversations easily, keep it very short and to the point, and be very direct, and set your boundaries. You already know if you're at this step, this person has probably burned you quite a few times, and or it was just one really big time. And whatever that situation was, it's time to know, back away. Nothing will change. You've already established that this is a pattern behavior. We're working from so many different, like, the way you are brought up, everything can be different. I am one of four. So it's like I have three siblings, and we couldn't be more different. When my If my mom were to give us the same news, it would be responded by differently. Like, even the way we react to things, the way we take on challenges, everything is completely different. And we grew up with the same parents. So when you think about it, when you're just talking about strangers, everything can be so different. I remember when we have a lot of instant messages, just kind of similar like we're doing in the chat, and I'm known for doing that when that's my quick response, but non-emergency. I'll say, hey, do you happen to have this? But I'll say before I even started to do that. So I'll ping people and I'll say, hey, do you happen to have this? And one time I had this one lady, and she actually picked up the phone and she called me. I said, hey, yeah, what's wrong? She said, well, I just wanted to talk with you about when you send me instant messages. We call it a ping. And I said, yeah, what's going on? She said, well, I find it very rude. And I thought, whoa, why? Why could that be rude? And she told me, well, when I receive a ping, I take it as a 911. So now you're making your issue my issue because you're interrupting my day with this 911, and you do that quite often. And I said, oh, I had no idea that's the way you were taking it. I did not even mean it that way. For me, that was just a quick response. For me, picking up the phone is the 911. So we had that big communication barrier, and it was a misunderstanding, and she understood where I came from. I understood where she came from. And going forward, before I send a message to someone, I would actually ask them, hey, can you ping? Before I even go into the message. And that's something she taught me to do because it's just a difference. People had their own approaches, and that's how she thought if you interrupt anything, or she took it as an interruption instead of just taking it as a, hey, when you get this, which is how I tried to deliver. Yes, that's a great, and that's usually, it's kind of like matching their energy, where if, you see that's the trend of how they kind of like to be speaking with. A lot of people, they usually say, don't treat me the way you would prefer to be treated, treat me the way I would prefer to be treated. So you're kind of recognizing how they would prefer to receive things, and you mirror that. And that's a great way. And we naturally do that as, polite people, even when it comes to speaking with someone. If you'll notice, if you're speaking with someone who's kind of like high pitched and energetic, and they're like, "Hey," and you're like, "Hey, what's going on?" But then if someone's kind of sad, or they're like, "Hey," and you're like, "Oh, what's going on?" You just kind of mirror the whole tone they bring, and that's a good approach with a lot of the work they do. However they send it, you kind of mirror that. Absolutely. I've been working in talent acquisition for over 6 years, and that is something that is huge. People are, you know, I remember when someone could really just leave a job very quickly over just money, or some people, depending on where they are in their life, they really care more about the benefits. But as I see new generations are coming in, that is what they care about, the culture. What can you do for me? How do I know you care about me or have resources to help me grow? What does a day to day look like? Why are people staying? Those are the type of questions they're getting. Not, well, could I get an extra 5,000 or can I do this? They're not interested. They want to know this environment. What does it look like? And that, to me, I'm actually thankful for the new generations coming in with that, because as we see the baby boomers exiting, one of the things that they brought in is, and I can't speak for all, but a lot, is that they would stick with the company despite a toxic culture, because that's their culture. You're supposed to stay with the job for 20 to 30 years. It would be absurd for you to leave in 5 or 6 years. Where millennials was kind of going into like our generation, where they were just saying, well, no, well, we'll stay or we'll leave, but we won't just accept the status quo. Where our Generation Zers are like, I'm out the door day 2. Nope, didn't work for me. I didn't get a good vibe, and I'm gone. And so they're forcing organizations to change so quickly that you have to keep up with it, or you just won't get talent. And to me, that's admirable. That's great, because you're challenging. I feel like I always joke at that. I feel like our millennials, we talked a great game, and we said we want change and we're gonna get it. And Generation Z is like, I'm tired of talking. We're just done. We're just gone.